Mr. John Penrose.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I think from what we've heard already, it is clear that both the Secretary of State and the government's previous housing white paper and the Labour Party front bench would all agree that house building is in crisis. And I would also agree with that. There are many possible solutions, but I want to propose just two in the limited time I have, which, if we start now, could be big and bold enough to make a difference. The first is to overhaul our slow, expensive, uncertain and conflict-ridden planning laws to give people a legal right to build up, not out, in towns and cities without needing planning permission. To create good-looking 4- and 5-storey townhouses and mansion blocks rather than sky-high tower blocks. To give our town and cityscapes back their local character by letting councils issue local design codes, so new buildings match local architectural styles or use local materials, killing off anywhere town estates of identical homes which all look the same no matter where you are in the country. Done this way, Build Up Not Out will transform house building, whether it's to own or to rent. Most of Britain's towns and cities are 2 stories tall on average, so going up to 4 or 5 stories in urban areas would almost double the amount of buildable living space in British homes at a stroke. Britain's housing associations are right behind the idea. It would attract much-needed new investment to regenerate and save tired or run-down town and city centres. It would be greener, because building in towns and cities would cut urban sprawl, taking pressure off green fields and letting people live closer to work and commute less. And it would encourage those small and medium-sized builders we were hearing about before and new entrants to the house building industry, breaking the power of the big housing developers who currently ration supply to keep prices high, making housing cheaper for hard-pressed 20 or 30-somethings whether they want to rent or to buy. Madam Deputy Speaker, the second idea is to get people building faster once planning permission is granted and give local communities a share in the value that's created when permission is given too. At the moment, the value of an acre of land goes up by at least 10 times when it gets planning permission, often by a whole lot more, and that happens before a single brick has been laid or a single home is built. The value of actually, designing and building beautiful houses to rent or buy is far less than the trading gains made by land speculators. Please, I'm happy to be quick.
Well, would the government at least look seriously at land value taxation? Because it's about time we had a proper review of how exactly what he talks about can be capped by land value taxation.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable gentleman leads me on, because this is the wrong way round. What is happening at the moment is the wrong way round. It should not be easier to buy land, do nothing, aim to get planning permission and then flip it for a profit, rather than building houses. From a moral and an economic standpoint, design and construction should be the things that add value to land, not hope or speculation. Planning permission is a huge and value-creating decision. It's taken by each local community, so they should see some of the value that is created. We need a tax on the speculators' profits, paid on the day planning permission is given or changed, straight to local councils to fund the services, the local services, which turn communities, turn dormitories into communities. Unfortunately, I'll have to.
It's great to hear a radical speech, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I hope our front bench is listening carefully. Will he come and speak at the next Right to Build Expo, run by the Right to Build Task Force, and talk about the costs, about lowering the barriers to entry so more new players can come in, that governors of high schools or NHS trusts wanting to use housing as a recruitment and retention device can get involved in this space?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would be delighted to accept my honourable friend's invitation. And fortunately, we don't need a new tax to achieve this value acquisition, which I think the honourable gentleman from the opposition benches was talking about. This is the one we prepared earlier. The community infrastructure levy nearly does what we need and could easily be tweaked so it does what we need by making it simpler and broader with fewer exemptions. It would be simpler, faster, cheaper and more predictable for developers, for planners and for landowners alike. And best of all, the revised community infrastructure levy would completely replace the hideously overcomplicated Section 106 agreements with all their uncertainty, unpredictability and lawyer-friendly viability assessments. And finally, to get developers building faster, councils should be able to charge business rates and council taxes starting from the day that planning permission is granted, rather than when developers finally get round to start building. We could give big developers a few months' grace till they get their crews on site, but then the meter would start running. So they would have a huge incentive to build and sell promptly rather than taking their time. And equally importantly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the same forces would apply to the hedge funds that own derelict brownfield land in town and city centres too. These sites already have old unused permissions, so the clock would start ticking immediately. Just think of the enormous shot in the arm, the jolt of adrenaline we'd give to urban regeneration projects everywhere, right across the country, if the owners couldn't sit on them for years anymore, waiting for something to turn up. Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Government's Housing White Paper says, the only way to make homes more affordable to rent or to buy is to build a whole lot more of them. I agree. There is no time to waste. Otherwise, house prices will continue to spiral and we will lock another generation out of the dream of a place of their own.
Yeah.